you mute others, or do they need to mute themselves in a bit?
We will mute everyone.
Oh.
And then we'll open it up during Q&A. Yes.
Yeah, I'll mute everyone.
Mhm.
You'll listen to me to unmute yourself. It's always a little blanket.
Okay, so she said that she's going to mute everyone, and right before you start talking, she'll need you to unmute yourself.
Sure.
All right.
Okay, wave to me if I forget.
Okay.
And you're live on Facebook.
Are we good for introduction? All right, we're good for introduction now. So Melissa Face is the author of I Love You More Than Coffee, an essay collection for parents who love coffee a lot and their kids a little more. Her essay and articles have appeared in Richmond Family Magazine, Tidewater Family Magazine, Scary Mommy, and 22 volumes of Chicken Noodle Soup for the Soul. She lives in Prince George and teaches world literature at the Appomattox Regional Governor's School for the Arts and Technology. And she will be discussing her new book, I Love You More Than Coffee. As well, copies of her book are available at the Readers Friend Bookstore, and she'll be donating 20% of the proceeds of the sales to the Friends of the Library. We'd like to thank her for that as well. I'm going to hand it off to Melissa.
Thank you so much. It looks like I stayed unmuted somehow. I'm not sure how that worked. But thank you for having me, Megan. It's been a pleasure working with you planning this event. And I'm so excited to be here and to talk about something that I feel is almost like a third child. My children are not in the room right now, so they can't hear that and offer their opinion about it. But one of the first things that people is the title, and I think one of the best ways to explain how it came to be is to just go ahead and read the essay that titles my collection. I can't say that all along a collection was in the works. I have written essays for as long as I can remember, so it was natural to do so once I had my two kids, as a coping mechanism, as an escape for enjoyment, for company. When I was the only one up at 3 in the morning, then it was really a nice thing to do to keep myself occupied and to sort out whatever it was that I was dealing with. So the collection became a collection with this essay. I didn't just get muted, did I? I saw some things happening. Can people hear me out there? Can you give me a thumbs up, Kim Seeley, if you can hear me?
Yes, you're good.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so the title is the one part of that I can't take because it came from my daughter, who was 3.5 at the time now, and she is quite proud of the fact that she came up with this, even though it was not at all intentional. So here is the story of how the collection came to be. Do you like me candy? Delaney asked. She's been on this kick for a few weeks now, and partly trying. Of course, I like you more than candy, I reassure her. Do you like me more than cookies? Yes. I like you more than cookies too. What about coffee? Her expression turned serious. Do you like me more than coffee? Now that's a tough one, I joke with her. You wouldn't really ask me to choose between you and coffee, would you? Evan, my son, chimes in at that moment. Careful, it's less than 6 days until Mother's Day. You don't want us to stop working on your presents, do you? I see him grin and wink at me in the rearview mirror, and I feel an actual ache in my chest from the love I feel for both of them. Of course, I don't want you to stop. I adore the things you make. But honestly, I had forgotten Mother's Day was approaching. As I am to have my children and to be their mom, I don't particularly love this holiday. Mother's Day makes me feel inept and guilty. It's a day of celebration of all the characters I demonstrate as a mom. Selflessness, patience. It conjures images of moms who pack nutritious lunches and plan and coordinate stimulating activities, all while talking in quiet, calm voices. I tried to be that mom a few times, twice maybe. Since I'm a relatively hopeful person, I have fleeting moments when I think I can still be that mom. I tried again last Friday. Delaney asked me to make her pancakes for breakfast. So after dropping Evan off at school, we went to McDonald's and I bought a large coffee and pancakes. That's how pancakes are made at this stage of my life. We were both excited about our day together. I promised her I would color and play with her dollhouse, and I promised myself I wouldn't yell or fuss the whole day. Right? Uh-oh, Delaney exclaimed while I poured her juice in the other part of the room. Nothing good ever follows uh-oh. I spilled a little bit of syrup. Of course you did, I said, not exactly to myself. The entire packet of maple goo cascaded off the edge of the table into Delaney's lap and eventually formed an amber puddle on the floor. I just stood and watched it ooze and thought about what I might use to clean it up. I thought about not cleaning it up. I could just leave it there. We have other rooms in the house. I'm sorry, Delaney was just trying to be a big girl. I know, I told her while I wiped syrup off her belly. A few minutes later, my maple-scented daughter sat next to me with her box of crayons. We took turns coloring Sky from Paw Patrol in as many shades of pink as we could find. We were almost finished when Delaney told me she had to go to the bathroom. She's been working on her independence in this area as well, so she goes in alone and I check on her as necessary. After the sink had run for about 5 minutes, I knew it was time to check. I opened the door and Delaney jumped. "You scared me," she said. "It wouldn't be scary if something wrong." Delaney had her Doc McStuffins doll under the faucet, face upright. "What are you doing to your doll?" "I was just cleaning her face from where somebody marked on her." That somebody was Delaney about 2 weeks earlier. I took in the scene: water on the floor, 2 soggy towels on the doorknob, and half a bottle of soap emptied into the sink. Shirtless, perched on her stool, scrubbing away at Doc McStuffins' face. I'm still not sure why she took her shirt off for the task. Anyway, my reaction was not one that I'm proud of. Not one I aspired to back before I became a mother. Yelling, fussing, and tears erupted from both parts. I took Delaney upstairs to the bathtub, fussing all the way and wishing I could have just sat down and enjoyed my coffee that sat cold on the counter before the daily messes began, before I lost hope in another, once again turned into the mom I to be. I was really hoping, as I scrubbed syrup, hand soap, and one unknown substance off my daughter, that she would not choose this moment to ask me if I liked her more than coffee. This stage of life is so intense. Other working parents of young children know what I mean. Stay-at-home moms and dads know what I mean. My friends definitely know what I mean. This is my life right now. It is nothing like I envisioned. I pictured myself having picnics to the park and braiding my daughter's hair, but all of that seems like some fantastical scene from Mary Poppins and nothing like my actual life. When I have been especially grumpy and critical of my children, I feel guilt, and I try to do up for it. Last Friday, I just joked that maybe my kids could go to the mommy store, find a mommy who doesn't fuss so much. Evan looked at me and said, "No way, I would never want another mommy." My eyes met his and I could tell he meant it. So this year, I'm going to try to be a little more enthusiastic about Mother's Day. I need to say farewell forever to the mother I thought I would be. and learn to appreciate the mother I actually am. My children accept me in the same way I accept them, despite shortcomings. They know I have a temper. They know I can be impatient. They know I sometimes fail, yet they love me anyway. They call for me when they don't feel well, and other times too, like when they're mad at their father. They are not perfect children, and I am not a perfect mom, but I love them something fierce, even more than coffee. So even though not all moms share in my coffee obsession, I think all moms have that little thing in your day that makes you feel like more than a mom, like a person, like that item of luxury is. For me, it was coffee in those days. A lot of times it still is. And so I wrote that piece after the quintessential everything went wrong day. And afterwards, I felt better. I felt better about the situation. And I really meant it when I said that I was going to try to embrace who I was, because I think we go into motherhood with this idea of what it's going to be like. My kids are going to be this way. Oh, they're not going to have devices. My children own that type of technology. We just have all of these ideas going into motherhood, whether they're wishes that we have for ourselves or perhaps influenced by the way we were raised. Sometimes it's an act of rebellion, or I'm not going to do this because of the way that I was raised. Not in my case though, because I've never been rebellious. Right, Mom? Anyway, it was that moment where I thought, I think I'm onto something here. And after that essay, it made sense to see what I had. So I went through and I actually did, as silly as it sounds, I sat on the floor with hard copies of all of my essays about parenthood. And I sifted through the thought were too similar in terms of theme. And I worked to get them in a chronological order. So my collection actually spans an 8-year period of motherhood. The moment I stood in my bathroom and celebrated to myself a positive pregnancy test. I told my husband, of course, who said, yes, I see 2 lines, I'm going back to bed. And I was like, here I am in this moment with this amazing news, but I'm reluctant to shout it from the rooftop. So I go all the way back to that, and then to the moment when I send my daughter off to school for the first time. And that's the only real variant in terms of the order. My publisher and worked with in layout in the early stages thought that changing the order just a bit there at the end, so I had my title essay as my final essay. So that's the only thing where there's a shift in terms of order, the timeline. So I thought, if it's okay if I read another selection, I'm going to talk a little bit about my son now, Evan. And he is actually my right-hand man when it comes to anything to do with my book, with events. He passes out bookmarks and business cards for me when I go out and about, because he's awesome and because I think it's less likely that people will say no to an adorable child. And I'm right about that. He gets very few no's, but you know what? He does get some, and he already doesn't mind them. So I'm like, what a great thing to learn to let that roll off when you're 10 years old, right? So this piece is called Baby Evan. And I think that parents can also relate to when we're in these certain stages of parenting. It seems like they will never, ever end, whether it is potty training or getting a child to read. You feel like to be in that stage for the longest time. You can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. People joke with you and say, well, how many 16-year-olds do you see walking around with a diaper? It's going to happen. But when you're in that moment, it feels like it's never going to happen. And my phase that I wrote about here was about how Evan referred to himself. And he actually read this piece. I guess it's been a couple of years now, maybe a year and a half or so. He read it at the library at the Prince George branch. He read it at Poetry, Prose, and Pizza Night, which I miss dearly. I'm sure several folks who are here miss that. We love that event. So it will be wonderful when we have that back in action again, all of our in-person stuff. So anyway, here's to baby Evan. In my effort to hang on to each moment of his childhood for as long as possible, I have continued to call my son baby Evan, even though he no longer qualifies as a baby. And now that he has become a walking, talking 2-year-old, he understandably refers to himself by the same name. Well, hello there, young man, says a kind lady in the grocery store. What is your name? I'm baby Evan, he proudly responds. The lady laughs, pats him on the head, and continues down the aisle. Aren't you just the cutest? Remarks the cashier at Target. What is your name? I'm baby Evan, he says, without hesitation. And so it goes. Each time he is asked, his response is the same. It has been very cute for quite some time, but my husband and I are beginning to worry. We discuss ways of him getting to drop the baby, and we talk about the possible consequences of him not giving up the title. He might scoot through elementary and middle school with minimal teasing, but problems could arise in high school, especially if he plays sports. And in the position of linebacker, the announcer shouts, is baby Evan. That wasn't a great linebacker or announcer voice. It will definitely be more difficult to intimidate his opponents if his baby name continues into his teenage years. But that's not all. My husband and I are concerned about his future career prospects as well. Will his name impede his professional goals if he decides to be a doctor, judge, police officer, or NASCAR driver? I can imagine all the potential hazards. Paging Dr. Baby Evan to the ER. Dr. Baby Evan, you are needed in the ER. All rise for the Honorable Judge Baby Evan. Officer Baby Evan to dispatch. I'm on the scene of at 10:30 requesting backup. And here they come around turn 3. Who was that driving the Ford? Oh yeah, buddy, I believe that's baby Evan. Okay, maybe we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. But it is time to start working with him on saying his real name. The other night we sat down and practiced. Your name is Evan Face, my husband said. Can you say Evan Face? Evan Face, our child repeated. Very good, we praised. Evan returned to pushing his tractors, shooting basketball. Then we called him back over to test our little lesson. What is your name? My husband asked. Evan paused thoughtfully for a minute. I'm Baby Face. Evan Face, Craig reminded him. Yeah, Evan said, and he returned to his toys. I talked to my mom about the situation, and she reminded me that almost everyone in my small hometown is known by a nickname. Imagine moving here, writing out Christmas cards, and trying to find names like Chicken Brown and Son Bailey in the phone book. Nobody is called by a given name in this town. I hadn't thought about that. Our town has a Blinky and a Slick. Heck, even my dad has been known as Moose for the majority of his life. So I guess baby Evan will fit right in, as long as he lives in or around Wakefield. But just in case he decides to move away from home, we will continue to practice, and hopefully he will learn his legal name. And when he does, I will be so proud of my baby, no matter how old he is. And I may have mentioned a minute ago, he is 10, and he no longer refers to himself as baby Evan. And see, that's the other thing about parenting. We're so anxious to get through stages sometimes, stages that worry us, stages that drive us crazy. And then as soon as they're gone, we miss them. I'm already missing some of the cute little mispronunciations that my children say. The moment they start to say a word correctly, you're like, who told her that? Who told her it's not a panano? I love that she calls piano panano. Well, I will pause for just a moment just to see if anyone has any questions. I haven't even looked at the chat. Should I be looking at that, Megan?
Right now, it doesn't look like there's any questions in the chat. Just lots of praise for Evan wanting to get back to poetry and prose.
He enjoys that as much as I do.
And also, let's see, on Facebook, we have somebody that says that they have a baby Carrie that's now 30 years old and a dad himself.
I love it.
We do have some prepared Q&A questions that we could start off with, and if anybody wants to jump in at any time, they're welcome to. So we could start off with number one.
Okay.
While reading this, I wondered about how your children react to the book now that they are old enough to read. Have they read any of it, and has it been helpful for your relationship to have this documentation of your vulnerability and honesty as a parent for them?
Okay, remind me the first part again, Megan. I want to make sure I answer it all.
Of course. So while
How
reading,
they feel about it, right?
yeah, how do they feel about it? Now, well, we know now that you said Evan is 10.
Evan's 10, Delaney is 7, and one of the joys right now of their ages is that they think it's wonderful. They celebrate every part of this journey with me. They were there the day that I had copies in hand from the warehouse, the day I first touched them, and they turned the book over. And in that moment, it really hit them. Like, they knew that I was working on something, but they didn't quite grasp it. But then when they saw their pictures on the back and said, that's us. That's really us. And my daughter is just learning to read. So she enjoys going through and finding all the words that she knows and reading the parts that she can. I'm proud to say that Evan has read all of it. And he is at a point right now where he still feels proud. We haven't gotten to a whole lot of the embarrassing, like I said, he proudly read an essay himself at the library, but I realize that all of that is subject to change and that it could happen very quickly. I'm already noticing it some with a lot of the mommy and kid quotes I like to post on my social media, and Evan will say, like, you're not going to post that one, are you? I'm like, oh, you don't want me to? No, let's not put that one out there. So there's a little bit of modesty, I guess, and reluctance that we didn't experience before. So now the rule is, with an essay, if I'm working on something, I read it for them to hear. And if they are okay and essentially sign off on it, then I'll send it out into the world. But I respect how they feel about things, so I try to be really careful now.
Okay. Well, we did have a question from Nathan Richardson, and
Hi, Nathan.
yes, he wanted to know, have you shared your book and poetry with your students? And if so, what was their reaction?
Some students, yes. I have read some things aloud at our previous faculty readings in the building. So yes, but this year, as you know, has been a year like no other. And so I actually have tried to keep my writing life and my teaching life a little more separate than I have in the past. And I'm really not even sure why. My sophomores right now, my current students, may not even be aware. They might wonder why I have a coffee cup hanging behind me when we have virtual class, and they haven't asked. But my former students know and like to chat with me about it and follow me on social media. But oh my goodness, I work with such amazing students who are writers themselves, and faculty members who are, and everyone I work with is published. So it's just a really, really beautiful journey in that respect, and at my school.
We had another question come in from Libby
McNamee. Hi, Libby.
She wanted to know what your future plans were for writing. And I think that also goes into one of our questions as well, where writers are often told to write what you know, and that worked well for you here. Are there any other life experiences that you're interested in exploring in this way? And would you ever consider writing about what you don't know, like a process that involves research?
Okay, awesome. I'm gonna tell you a little something, and then if you feel like I didn't answer it well, then let me know. I feel like at this stage of life, writing what I know is really what I can do best, and that's primarily a time constraint. I teach full-time. I guess you could say that I write full-time too. It's just crazy, strange hours keep in that respect. But and then I also have a freelance component to my writing life, and there I do a lot of research. I do a lot of interviewing, and I love that, but it's on a very small basis at this point. So down the road, I would entertain the idea of writing what I don't know, but I would have to have a little more freedom in my schedule. And I think I would like to write a biography. I love interviewing people. I love developing the questions, asking the questions, sharing their stories. So I think that would be a fun project for way out there when baby Evan and his sister are much older, and when I don't spend quite as much time grading and correcting student work as I do now, which is a pleasure and a privilege, but definitely a lot of time.
Another question from Libby, where she said, what is your favorite time to write?
At night, when the house is quiet. My favorite season to write is summer. I like to go to a writing retreat if I'm able, and have truly 2 or 3 days where I do nothing but write. A little eating, of course, and a lot of coffee drinking, but mostly reading and writing the entire time. But this time of year, nighttime, I have to wait until the house is quiet, even though writers are advised to get used to writing in loud places, to go somewhere. I actually heard this at a conference once, that you should train yourself to write in a really noisy environment. The gentleman speaking at the conference said, go to the noisiest coffee shop that you can find, sit at a table in the middle of lots of people, and make yourself get some work done. Focus and write whatever your page count is for that day, just do it. And that if you can train yourself to do that, then you can write regularly regardless of what's going on around you. But I struggle a little with focus. That's not something that I have been able to conquer.
Oh, that sounds challenging for anyone.
Yeah. But it does prepare you for motherhood, I guess. If you were to hang out, I don't know, maybe you should hang out at a frat house and write if you want to be prepared for motherhood. I feel like that's closer to what I live in some days.
Yeah, it'd probably be best to stay at home and write if that you're looking for the most challenging place to write.
Exactly. Yes.
We had a question from Dawn Elliott.
Hi, Dawn.
She said, your essays serve as a unique memory for you and your children. We take pictures and videos galore of our kiddos, but we don't always capture the fears, concerns, and feelings in the moment. Will you continue to write these essays throughout their childhood? What a gift they are to your children and your legacy.
Oh, that's a beautiful statement and a really, really good question. I should. The answer is I should, and I hope that I will. And I'm still doing it right now. And I feel like if I was able to make that happen in one of the craziest years we've experienced, that I ought to be able to continue going down that path. But I do joke that this collection and other essays have happened because of things that I have not done. So when my kids ask me one day for their baby book, I'll be like, well, here it is. And for $16, you can have one. So yeah, there are some areas where I probably haven't done all the things that maybe I should have, but yes, I have some very detailed accounts of some really special experiences that will be, I think, meaningful for them and will help me, that already helped me like jog my memory, especially of what those early years of motherhood were like. I think that the sleep deprivation causes us to forget a lot of those things. And then I think sometimes we block it out because it's just so hard.
So trying
Block some of it out in order to have a second child, right?
I agree. That book is probably a way better baby book than some of us have. I think I maybe got to 6 months and it's blank after that. So
It's hard.
it's hard to keep up with.
So much is happening and it's just really hard to keep up with it. But
Once
we
they
have
start talking.
a lot of things that other generations didn't. I mean, we have the videos, like that was in Dawn's question, I believe, the videos and the pictures. We have excessive pictures, don't we? That's another story, another topic for another time, but we have pictures of things we probably shouldn't have pictures of. Just like my daughter asked me about our trip to Disney World. This just shows you a little bit about a child's perspective in terms of technology. And we were looking at pictures from Disney, and she said, "Oh, show me the one where I got sick at Chef Mickey's." And I said, "Delaney, I didn't take a picture of you sick, honey." And to her, it was like, well, why wouldn't you have that? You seem to have photos of everything else on your camera roll. Why would you not have documented that? So even our kids see how ridiculous we are about photographing and videoing everything. So I just thought that was funny. I've always remembered that she asked me, like, show me that picture, or else feeling better.
Well, I'm trying to read this, but I don't think that there's a question, but it is a nice statement.
Okay.
And it said, where is it? "I enjoyed the book as a mother whose boys are now 20 and 26. And I remember all the days when they were younger and worked outside of the house full time and trying to be what I thought was supposed to be the perfect mother, which I realized I had to develop my own style as they get older. They don't want you sharing." And that's from Miss Carol Driscoll.
Oh, wow.
She also had another comment saying that as she read the book, she lives in Prince George and tried to imagine what McDonald's you were at and what preschool. And one day friends and I also ate at a hot dog place that she imagined you were talking about. And a woman sitting there overheard our conversation and joined in. "I still wonder if the mom I spoke with is the woman you mentioned in your book. It was fun being that I live in the same town." So it seems like you have a nice connection to the
I
actual
love that.
town that you're living in and writing in, and
Yes.
strong Prince George connection as well with the pizza and poetry and prose that we would have.
Yes. So the McDonald's is the McDonald's at the corner of 460 and Courthouse. That's the closest one to us. So that's where we got the pancakes at the drive-through. Gregory Memorial was the preschool, and Zebra's was the place we were at where we had ice cream that day, where we met a woman whose conversation was just so impactful. That was one of those essays that I came home and I had to write about it right after it happened. Like there was no delay, and everything else that I needed to do got pushed to the back burner because I had to just deal with that experience. And I think that's what my writing does for me a lot of times, is it's helping me make sense of an experience. So I know that it probably sounds a little bit selfish, and I don't mean it this way, but oftentimes I am writing for myself because I am writing to deal, to cope, to make sense, to find the joy in something. There are so many days in motherhood that are so wild and crazy that if I can just focus on that one thing that went really well and go with it and kind of have that my focal point, then it's like I did okay for the day because something good happened, and that's what I'm putting my attention on. So I am glad, I am so, so glad that things in my collection have reached others, but it would be untrue for me to say that it was my intent to write for others initially, because I was really writing to deal with what I was experiencing. And I saw that somebody had mentioned reading something that I especially like, and I was
Yes,
wondering if I should do one of those local pieces.
yes. I think somebody was requesting another essay, and there was. Is the book available at all locations of the library? The book is available at the Hopewell branch at the Readers Friends Bookstore, and that is open on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays from 10:30 to 2:30. And if you'd like to request a book, I can put that to the side and you can email me directly. I'll put my email in the comment section on Facebook, and that way you can look into getting a book as well if you cannot get there when the bookstore is open.
Thank you, Megan. I think I'll read this piece. I have not read this aloud before, I don't believe, so it's a great time. Hot dogs for lunch. We were in the mood for hot dogs and chips. I picked Delaney up from preschool, took her to the playground and the library, and asked her what she wanted for lunch. I would like a hot dog, and plain chips, not the ones that are too hot in my mouth. She was talking about the barbecue, and that was all they had on the counter of the local restaurant just down the road from her school. She asked me to buy them anyway. Delaney and I sat across from one another and ate our hot dogs and chips. They were simple, delicious, exactly what my 3-year-old wanted. A lady sat down at a table next to ours and began eating her meal. Those glasses sure are cute, she told my daughter. Thanks, Delaney said. The lady asked if they were an accessory or if she had impaired vision, and I explained that Delaney is nearsighted and has astigmatism. Well, they look great on her, the lady emphasized. My baby has Asperger's, she told me. He's in school now and doing really well because I got him started in programs early. I commended her for being such a strong advocate for her child, told her that I used to work with students with disabilities. He's actually my grandbaby, she said. I thought I was done raising babies. She sighed and took a bite from her hot dog. But what are you supposed to do when your daughter walks away from her own child? I just listened and took another bite of my hot dog. To her, it's like she just asked me to watch her purse while she went to the bathroom. No different, really. She leaned her forehead against her palm and told me more about her family. My grandbaby's in kindergarten now, and he doesn't like the lunch, so I just feed him when he gets home, or I buy him a Lunchable. He knows what he wants and has a pretty strong sense of self. We commiserated about picky eating habits and strong personalities. I knew exactly what she was dealing with in that respect. And my daughter has missed it all. The milestones, birthdays, Christmases. I don't know how it doesn't kill her soul. You know? It would kill your soul, wouldn't it? I told her it would, and I meant it. I know exactly how fortunate I am to be there for the major events in my children's lives. I'm grateful to have every afternoon, evening, and weekend with them, and I really appreciate my special weekday lunch dates with Delaney. Today she chose hot dogs. Delaney and I finished our lunch and moved on to dessert. At some point during our conversation, another customer had anonymously paid for Delaney's ice cream. We indulged and continued talking with our new friend. I lost a baby to SIDS years ago, she confided. It's one of the most painful things you can imagine. I thought I had maxed out on my share of suffering. And then my son committed suicide a few years ago. You may have heard of him. He was a decorated soldier from Prince George. She pulled out a memorial poster from her purse. It was covered in pictures of him from high school and his time in the military. I told her that I never taught him, but some of my friends probably had. He was such a handsome, intelligent man, and he had achieved so much in such a short time. I told her how sorry I was, and we chatted more about grief, pain, and loss. We both questioned how so many people go through life untouched by tragedy, yet others have to suffer endlessly. We talked about staying positive, working hard, and being grateful for the people we still have. My grandbaby is half white and half black, she continued. He asked me where he fit in at school, if he fit with the black children or the white children. I told him he fit in with all of them because he's a human. We both said we wished more people thought the way we did, and the world would be a better, safer place if that were true. When it was time to leave the restaurant, I wiped ice cream off Delaney's mouth, and we all walked outside together. I told the lady how nice it was chatting with her, and it was a lunch I wouldn't soon forget. Delaney and I pulled out of our parking space and waved goodbye to our new friend, a lady I bonded with because of our beliefs on raising children and treating people with kindness. Our similarities outweighed our differences, and I was so glad I had been there to listen to her story, the things she needed to say. It turned out I was the perfect person to hear it all. Thank goodness Delaney chose hot dogs. Thank you. Were there any questions?
Are there any questions? We don't have any coming through on the chat. Does anybody have any? We did. Let's go back. Did you ever start an essay and decide it wasn't going to work?
Yes,
Yes.
many times, and about all sorts of topics. And I take classes from time to time. I took a few through the pandemic where that was the purpose, was to get started on a piece. So I have notebooks all over the place with half begun essays. Yeah. Nothing more is going to happen with that one. That's the end of that. And sometimes it's just because I lost whatever it was that was driving me in that moment, and something else took priority, and maybe it will happen again another time.
They said, have you always been a writer, or did you start around the time you had kids?
I have always written. I haven't always referred to myself as a writer. I think those are very different things. I think that a lot of people initially have a hard time claiming that title as writer. And what does that mean? Like, what do I have to have accomplished in order to say that? Or I'm in a crowd of people who have published novels. Is it okay to say that I'm a writer if I have only contributed to things? So I definitely started long before I had children. And I wrote a lot of pieces that I submitted to some women's publications, to Chicken Soup for the Soul. And then I can go way back to high school when I wrote really, really bad poetry on the floor of my bedroom when I was mad at my parents. So perhaps, thank you, Mom, that was the beginning of things for me. And thank Dad too, if he's back there, because getting grounded a lot really helps my writing. At least gave me the time. Couldn't talk on the phone.
Do we have any Facebook, any questions? Okay. All right, we're just looking to see that we didn't miss anybody in the chat.
Okay, sure.
Oh, Libby would like to know if you have future plans.
Future plans? I'm going to Disney World. What do you mean, Libby? Future plans for what? Projects?
She said writing.
I have a little something in the works that I'm not going to say a whole lot about right now, but I guess my next big thing that I want to do is write a memoir of the years that I lived in South Carolina. I spent 8 years in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. It was supposed to have been a summer that turned into 8.5 years. So yes, that's something that I hope to do. I plan to do. I will do. And Mom, I'll let you know which pages you can read. I'll flag them for you so you know that you can read those and skip the others. So that's what I hope. Thank you, Libby. And I was kidding about Disney World, unless, of course, you want to go.
We have, let's see, anybody? Let's go down the.
And if not, I'm happy to close with like a short selection if you would like me to do that.
I think that would be great, and we love listening to you.
Okay. Well, I enjoy
Let's go with a
reading
short
them,
selection
so
then.
thank you. Okay, let me see what's short. Okay, we've been talking a little bit about poetry tonight. It is still Poetry Month. So I think I'll read what I have that kind of teeters the line between poetry and prose. It's one of those pieces that I wasn't really sure what it was when I was writing it. Maybe I'm really not sure what it is right now, but I know I like it. And as other pieces did, it helped me work out some things that were happening. So this is just called Motherhood. This is like the stew of everything that you experience, all of the emotions, all in one piece. My daughter said her children can play under it. That way they can still enjoy outdoor recess on rainy days. My daughter said I need to practice my driving. You don't even know how to get to California, she said, but I know how. Is that right? How do you drive to California, Delaney? It's easy. You go to Waverly, then Prince George, and there it is, just after Pop and Nanu's house, California. My daughter said, that's the place, Mom. That's where the policeman got you because you did the very, very bad U-turn. Did you almost go to jail? My daughter said she needed to draw something that begins with letter A for homework. She drew a fish, a bunny, and a cat. Those don't start with A, Delaney. Animals does, she said. My daughter said she was not on red at school today. It says on Class Dojo that you were, I argued. That's not true, she said. It says right here on the app that you were on red for not using your words. No, that was someone else. That wasn't me. My daughter said she couldn't be an angel in the Christmas Eve program. I'm not an angel, she insisted. No joke, I thought. Can I be a cat? She asked. There isn't a cat in the nativity scene, we told her. There should be. My daughter said she wrote something for me and I needed to hang it up by my desk at work. She handed me a square of yellow construction paper. She'd written LOL cat in the center of the square. Hang it up where your students will see it, she said. My daughter said, thank you, Mommy. Jumped into the pool and lifted her out of the water. It only took a second, just like they say. I had allowed her to take off her floaties and she was holding onto a pool noodle. When a bug arm, she panicked, flipped off the noodle and slipped beneath the surface. For the next few minutes, we clung to each other and sobbed. Thank you, she said. Thank you so much.
So not. Oh, we have a question. It says, have you ever read any of the Shirley Jackson short stories?
But I saw the other than, so the answer is no. No, but I'm guessing that means I need to. Do you have something you recommend? I didn't see
I
who
just-
asked that question. But
Can
It
you
was
hear me?
Peg Whipple.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. I'm sorry to interrupt
That's-
everybody. She lived and wrote at a very fascinating time when being a mother, being an author, being outspoken and doing the kind of writing that she did was very unusual. And there's one story that everybody may, or a number of people may have read about her son, which is really funny. I've forgotten the title of it, but he keeps talking at the dinner table about a kid who's really acting out at school. And it's got a great kicker at the end to it. So I'll see if I can remember the name, but or the
Okay.
title of that essay. Yeah.
That
But
might
she-
even be enough to go on. I was taking notes, so I'm wondering if he is the child who was acting out that he's
Yes,
describing to her.
He was, but yeah, and she was in, and let's see, when did she live? The 40s, 50s? I'd have to stop and think about it. She died very young too, which was tragic. But I like her stuff a lot, and her references to children, especially, I thought were really interesting. So you don't have any time for that, but I'm sure that the library has, any of the branches probably has some of her stuff. So yeah, made me think of her when you were talking.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned it, and I will make time for good work. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm glad I muted myself during your last essay because it made me laugh quite a bit. It was,
The stories. She would come home from preschool with these outrageous stories, and she
Oh,
thought
yeah.
it was hilarious to try to get us. She actually had me for a second. I was like, what kind of new umbrella is this that preschool teachers have so that kids can play outside even when it's raining? Because who thinks to come home? Kind of description.
yeah. Did you put the LOL cat sign up for
It
your?
is still there. It is, I sit in front of it every day. Yes, the things that she has drawn for me are in my classroom.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Well, I think that has been wonderful, and I think we're going to wrap everything up. Go ahead. Oh, somebody said they thought the
Believe me, I did too at first. I did too. I was like, what a story.
Well, we want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening to come and discuss your book with us. We're so happy to have not only copies here at the library, but copies available for sale at the bookstore. We have bookmarks and stickers as well at the bookstore that you can come and get. And we will have this up on Facebook so that people who were not able to log on at 7 can go back in and watch it and find out some more information about the book. But thank you again.
That's great. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. Thank you for letting me share.